The initial page of setup is reached by going to the setup menu, and then it brings you to the first tab, which is called company info. You can put in your company name, office phone, office fax, headquarters address, city, EIN, license number for the main state that you work in, your motto if you have one, and then also you can choose your company logo. So right now I just have it defaulted as our favicon, but let's say I want to change that. So when I upload the document, now see that it shows it there. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and then we're good to go. I'm ready to go to the next tab. On the States tab, you have lots of different states here. You can go ahead and select one that you want to add in. So for example, as you can see, I already have several of these active. I'm going to go ahead and add, let's say, Illinois. So when I click edit, it brings up the options here. I'm going to click yes for active. I can also put in license number, who my qualified manager is if I want to, renewal date for my license, tax exempt number if I have one, and sales tax, whether or not it's exempt, yes or no. Those are just for record keeping. But to make it so it loads up in all of my drop boxes, I go ahead and hit that and then update. And there we go, states info updated. Now Illinois will load in all of my drop boxes. The integrations tab is a very powerful tool. Some other CRMs will have you email your login credentials to them, and then a week or two later they'll show up. We let you have full control over that, especially since some of your usernames or passwords might change periodically, and we don't want you having to wait on us. So for example, I'm going to integrate with COPS monitoring. When I click COPS monitoring, it's going to bring up a little message for me saying if your COPS login requires a username too, place it after the dealer number with a pipe in between. The pipe is right above the enter or return key on your keyboard. So for example, if I want to integrate, I'm going to click active, and I'm going to use their example here. So let's say my username is P000. Actually, that would be my dealer number. And then let's say my username would be swordfish. Then I'm going to hit a pipe, swordfish. And then my password that I would use to log into Empower with COPS monitoring. And then when I click save, there we go. I am now fully integrated with COPS monitoring. You'll need to do this for every single one of your pieces of integration. For example, your alarm.com account for your in-house accounts. Also, let's say that I was using this for time payment, then I would also have to use my alarm.com TPC. Let's say I also have a Security Equity Partners account. I would put alarm.com for SEP, and I would put in my credentials there. I would also need to do this for central stations, also for my billing through NMI or any other merchant provider, or any kind of integrations. This is where you have full control over everything.
For equipment tracking, we have a very robust function that will help you a lot. The first thing you'll do is you'll come to the equipment tab, and then you'll see the equipment as the first sub-tab and custom parts as the second sub-tab. So under equipment, here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say I use 2GIG, I use Napco, Kwikset, GE, Honeywell, whatever brands you use, you can go ahead and load those. So when I click load, it's only going to show those pieces of equipment because those are what you use. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click active. See, I've already done this here. I've clicked active under the pieces of equipment I use. So apparently I don't use the Gemini 1664 panel or the 9600 panel, but I do use other Gemini stuff, I guess. And I do use certain pieces of Honeywell, but I don't use others. So I come through and I click a checkbox on all the pieces of equipment I use. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to tell it how much you pay to get this piece of equipment from your supplier on average, I guess, and if you have more than one supplier. But you're going to put your cost of how much it costs to get this. You come down and put that for each piece of equipment. Next, you're going to put the employee cost. So if you do it, there are two different ways you can do payroll for your employees. You can have it where you just deduct the cost of the equipment that's put into a customer's house, or you can give it a point value. If you want, you could do both, but most people do one or the other. So I have this blank because we're using a point value. So that's the next thing. You're going to come in here and put how much is the point value for each piece of equipment. Then if you want to, you can put customer cost. This is for future use where we're going to actually have this to where customers can order pieces of equipment from you, maybe even from the online store that we'll let you have for using our product. But that at this time is not being used. So you come through and put all those values, and then at the bottom you'll hit save. Now, all of those pieces of equipment will load into the drop boxes when you do your inventory tracking. Also, when you do payroll tracking, it'll know how much to deduct from this, the sales rep, either by value or by point value. The next thing is custom parts, because we've put a lot of pieces of equipment into our database. However, not everything is in here. So you may want to go to custom parts and say, I'm going to add in a new piece of equipment that we don't have. For example, let's say you have the in-house accounts where you put in your own yard sign, and then you have the safe security accounts where you're going to put in their yard signs. So you want to track them differently. Or a 2 gig programming cable, for example, if you issue that out to your techs or whatever. Either way, you're going to click Add New. Then you're going to put in what it is. So let's say I tell it the description, the SKU, and then tell it which brand. If it doesn't fit any of our brands, then you're going to put this under Other. And then when you add that in, it will be into the system. And that's how we do equipment setup in the One Stop Portal. Setting up central stations using One Stop Portal is very easy. You come to the Central Station tab under the Setup menu, and you'll put in which central stations you use. So if my dealer number with Avant-Garde is 99999, then I put that in and put a check mark under active. Let's say I also use COPS monitoring for some of my in-house accounts, put in the dealer number in the active checkbox. Dynamark, let's say I sell accounts to Safe Security. It looks like in this case we use a lot of different central stations. When you're done, you just click Save, and then you're done. Setting up central stations for One Stop Portal is very simple. You come to the Setup menu, go to the Funding Sources tab, and then you're going to go check which ones you use. So if I use First Bank of Utah to fund some of my accounts, I do in-house, I sell some accounts to Monty, some to Safe Security, I also finance some through Security Equity Partners and some through TPC, then I'm done, click Save, and then those will load up whenever you do anything on the customers.
One of the most powerful yet difficult to use functions of One Stop Portal would be payroll tracking. That's why for this I'm going to make a video tutorial where I'm going to show you this pay scale here that I just made up. It's a pretend company's pay scale, and we're going to make this into a real pay scale that the One Stop Portal would use to pay somebody. Now, the way I always do this is I start at the very top. So with this particular one, we've got for landline systems, two-way and non-two-way voice, we got for cellular systems, and we got for automation systems, meaning like, say, Alarm.com Home Center or Interactive Gold, for example. So the highest amount that somebody can get paid out on is $725, as you can see right there. Also, that's assuming that they're charging $64.99, assuming that they have ACH, that it's not commercial but residential, and assuming that the credit score is above 750, and that the contract length is 60, not 48 or 66. So let's go in and let's create our very first pay scale using those variables. When I click Add New to create a new pay scale, I'm going to have to select the pay range. Oh, I don't have any yet, so let's add a new one. So contract months low and high. For this one, I'm going to say 60 months. And 60 months as the high as well. RMR amount, if we go look at our thing here, it's saying from 64 all the way down to $69.99. So we're going to put those as the ranges. So $59.99 was the low, and $64.99 was the high. Discount per dollar, the way I would tell that is I'm going to look at the pay scale. Looks like if this comes from $64.99 down to $63.99, it's $25 less. This one's 25, 25, 25, and 25. So for this entire range, it goes $25 less per dollar less of RMR. So that's how we're going to set this up. $25 deduction per dollar, assuming $64.99, where that's the highest. Then our system can automatically do it. So let's click Save there. And I'm going to actually add another one for 36 month. Or actually, let's do it for 48 first. So for 48, let's do that. Now let's add one more for 36. And now those three are in there. Now we'll still need to come back in and create it for the cellular systems and for landline systems, but these are the three that we're going to use for this, so I'll show you for automated systems. Now, I'm going to hit next. Let's go through the wizard here. I'm going to start it today. Alright, this was assuming automation. So let's pick one of our ones here. Let's say advanced interactive plus automation. Actually, I'm going to start at the highest one. I always like to start at the highest, most expensive plan. Or actually, the one that gives the highest payout. Sorry. So interactive plus automation would be our highest payout because they're getting deducted for two-way. So here we go. We get to our one that gives us the highest payout. Next. Okay, let's get a funding source. For this particular one, we're going to use, say, time payment. Okay, we're going to use the highest one, which would be ACH. I'll create them for credit card and invoice later because those have a lower payout. So there we go. Let's hit next. And the lower credit score. As I'm looking at my credit scores here, I can see that the highest one, the low point would be 750, and the high point would be 900 because that's the highest you can go. So for my highest tier, I'm going to say 750, and the highest that it could be is 900. So that's making a range there for the credit score. I could also do it for a credit letter. So in time payments case, I actually probably would use a letter like B or O or A or R, whatever the letters are. But for this example, I'm going to show you how to do it with these ranges instead. Next. Okay, point value or dollar amount. How am I deducting the equipment? I give every piece of equipment a point value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say equipment allowance in points. Let's say that I allow, well, let's take a look and see how many. I allow 9 points, and then the panel equals 3 points. So that's just something I set when I put in the equipment. I assign a point value to each piece of equipment. But either way, my system now knows to allow 9 points. Well, how much is the deduction per dollar over the threshold? Meaning if I give away 10 points, how much does that cost? Let's say $30. I think I forgot to put that on the fake example, but that's okay. If they go under, I can give them some of it back. I can say if you go over 9, then it's going to cost you $30 per point. If you go under 9, it's only going to save you $15 per point. That way you're not making it so that reps are really incentivized to give no equipment to customers, essentially screwing over customers. So you can do it however you want, though. Activation charge. So let's look at the pay scale. In this example, it's $49.99 on better credits. On other ones, it's $99.99. Now, since this is the best credit, I can go ahead and put $49.99 because this one was in the good credit tier. Gross payout after adjustments. So this is assuming the highest payment. Let's go look at that again. It was $725. So on 725, because we were assuming that it was not 2A. Here we go next, and now I can finish and put that pay scale in there. Now if I click load, you'll see that it comes right in there. Now from here it gets a little bit faster. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clone this one really quickly here. So that pops up another one exactly like it. It won't let me save until there's something different about it. So let's take, first of all, instead of 750 to 900, let's change this from, well, let's go look and see. The other credit tier was 675 to 749. So let's go back here. 675 to 749. Perfect. Now, how much does that deduct us? That deducts $40. So when I take this, I saw this one was $725, so I'm going to deduct $40 off of 725, which is, I believe, $685. So now, assuming that I got everything exactly right, ACH, everything's the same, assuming that I charged the highest amount, then my payout would be $685 if I have that credit tier where, you know, this credit score was within that range. So when I hit update, now I have two variables in there. So let's do it again. Let's clone it for the next credit tier, which was 600 through 674. 600 through 674. 600 through 674. Or, yeah, 674. There we go. Now I can go ahead and update that one. I'm going to do it one more time with this. And this one was 500 through 599, I believe. And oh, you know what? I just realized I have to do one other thing here. So I have to cancel this. You'll notice that I made a mistake, so I'm going to have to delete this one. I did not change the payout on this one, so I have to delete it. Okay, I'm going to go back and do it again. Cloning it, I'm going to say the range there, which was 600 through 649. Or was it? No, 674. There we go. Now I have to deduct, how much was it from this one? This one, it deducts 100, so $60 more. Actually, I can just take 100 off of the initial one, so I can just say 625 here. There we go. Update that one. Now I clone the last one. So this one was 500 through 599. There we go. And this one was a deduction of 300. So let's deduct 200 more off of this one. So that's 425 would be the highest you can get if your credit score is within that range. Update. Now, I'm going to show you how we do the clone multiple thing. So, because that's my next thing over. So I started with credit, and now I'm going to do it for, I've already got it for the ACH. Now let's make those changes for everything, assuming credit card. So I'm going to click all of them. I'm going to say clone multiple. So it's going to clone every single one of these. All I'm going to change is the payment type to credit card, and then the payout adjustment, positive or negative. Now, how much does that change it? If it's credit card, it's negative $40. So when I come in here and I say negative $40, it's going to clone each one of those. So I don't change any of the other variables. I keep everything the same. And when I hit clone, there we go. We went from 4 to 8. So it has all of them for ACH and all of them for credit card. Now, let's clone each of those 4 again for invoice. Clone multiple, and assuming instead of credit card it's invoice, but how much are we deducting now? It's 80. So we change that, instead of 40 we change it down to 80 for that. Clone, and there we went from 8 to 12. Perfect. Now let's say I want to make the same change. Instead of ADC interactive plus automation, I want to do every single one of those with ADC interactive plus automation for two-way voice. So let's clone multiple here. Let's say no change to the credits, to the payment type, but the change that we're making is to the monitoring type. So instead of interactive plus automation, it was interactive plus automation two-way voice. Now, how much less does that make? So let's see, with two-way voice, it appears as though it's $100 less in every case here. That made it much easier for me. So long as this amount is the same less as this, as each of these. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense for you. See, this is 100 less than this. This is 100 less than this. If this was 50 less than this, but this was 100 less than this, then I would have to create separate things, and I can't do clone multiple. Thank goodness all of these are the same. So I'm going to say it just deducts $100 off of each pay scale if it's two-way voice. So minus 100 and clone. There we go. We went from 12 to 24. So now we're going faster and faster. So there we go. We've created all of the pay scale multiples for every situation, if it's time payment and if it's ADC interactive, whether it's two-way voice or not two-way voice, no matter what the payment type is or the credit tier. Now, okay, the activation, I put $49.99 on each of these. I forgot. You're going to want to be more careful than I was, because this one right here on this particular pay scale can have just a $49.99. But these ones down through here, these were all supposed to be $99.99 activation. So be more careful. In my case, I would have to delete all 3 of these and rebuild those. So be careful. If you get it right the first time, then it takes only a minute, and now I've created it for all of the automation ones. Then I'm going to have to go back in and do add new again, and I'm going to have to go ahead and create the new ranges for cellular systems, and then go through all those steps, and then create them for landline systems and go through all those same steps. Now, it only took me about 15 minutes to do it. So assuming you do everything right, you could set up all your pay scales in a matter of an hour or 2, yet still have the most versatile payroll tracking that you can think of. Now, one more thing I forgot to show you here. Let me go back to it. I forgot to show you that residential versus commercial. That was one of the things I just overlooked. Be more careful than I did. See, so the type is residential. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually, I can click this button right here and it'll select all of them for me. So with every single one of those, in my scenario here, we see that I get $120 deducted if it's commercial. So I do the same thing as I showed you before, where I'm going to come down here, click clone multiple, and I'm going to say no change to any of these things except for the customer type. Instead of residential owner, I'm going to say for a commercial account, I get less multiples generally paid to me if it's a commercial account. So I'm going to say negative 120 and clone them. And there we go. We went from 24 to 48. Just like that, I created 24 pay scales. So that's what makes this go a little bit quicker. I know it still takes a long time, and that's just because it's an incredibly versatile system, but if you do it right, it's going to make it a lot easier on you when you go to run your payroll. In addition to all these, you have some other things. Now we have our install pay scale. This is very simple. You would say your base pay, let's say we pay our guy $100 a job, but after 6 points, I now pay him $3 per point over it. So if we give him a 10-point system, then that's 4 points over 6, so 4 times 12 would be 12. He would get $112, if that makes sense. Then in addition to all that, so that's for salesmen and pay for technicians. Technician pay is obviously very simple. Then you can create a percentage of how much you're going to pay him. Actually, before you do that, you have to create a hold fund. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say a rookie sales rep gets $200 amount taken off of the top for hold fund. Technicians get $15 taken off the top for hold fund. Or I could do a percentage. Like, for example, this second year rep only has 8% taken off the top for hold fund, and the star technician gets $5 taken off the top. Then I assign each sales rep and each technician to one of these. Now I can do both. I can say $200 plus 2%, so then it'll actually take both things off the top for hold fund. You can do whatever you want with that. You can do one, the other, or both. So I create a hold fund. Then I come here to the percentage and I say, all right, my rookie guys, they're only going to get 90% of the whole pay. So after it runs pay scale, it's going to just pay that guy 90% of what the pay scale is that we defined. In addition to that, you got your second year guys. Those are the guys who they get 100% of the pay scale. This is just for this scenario. If you're a star guy, you're one of my guys that I trust, you do good jobs, you've been really good for me, I'm going to give you a 10% raise, and then you're going to set the dates by which it goes through it. Then when I go to the employee section of setup, I can actually assign my employee to a hold fund and to a pay scale percentage amount, and then it works and they can pay him. If you have any other questions or any concerns, send an email to info@onestopportal.com.
Adding employees or editing employees is done from the Setup menu and the Employees tab. When you get here, you can search for either techs or reps or other or any combination of them. So where I have all 3 checked, it's showing all of them. Then if I want to add a new one, I'm going to click Add New. I'm going to put in the information. So for employee type, make sure you put whether it's a contractor or employee. Login role, is this going to be a general manager like one of the owners? Is this going to be one of the staff like office personnel, salesman, or technician? Let's say I'm adding a salesman in there. Or actually, I'm going to put a technician in here because there's more stuff for that for me to show you. So the technician's name, let's put Rick James. So I put Rick James, give me his cell phone number. I put in 111-222-3333, whatever his cell phone number is. It's important to put in their cell phone number and their cell phone provider. So let's say he's on the Sprint plan. That way he can receive text message alerts. Let's also put in his email, whatever@whatever.com. Okay. Then his address, 123 Fake Street, the city, state, and the zip code. There we go. You can put in his social if you want to. That's just for record keeping, and it's not visible. It's definitely encrypted and safe. You also want to put in his Gmail address. Now, if he already has the Gmail up here, that's fine. Put it down here also. This is for Google Calendar integration. When you do the scheduling function, you can actually see their Google Calendars, and you can place events on their Google Calendars. So put their Gmail address, or at least the one that's linked to a Gmail account. That way, it will go in there. You're going to give them a username as well, and then you're going to have to type the password in twice, hit add new, and then that hit add new, and then that employee will be added into the system. Now, going back, let's go ahead back to the employees section here. You can also edit each of these employees. So I did add new, but if I want to come back and edit the information later, I'll click edit, and then I can come in here and change any of it. And that's how we do employees in the one-stop portal. If you just got a leads list, or if you are a new customer to the one-stop portal and you've switched from, say, OnGuard, for example, we have importing function. This is done from the setup menu and the import tab. When you come here, if you need the lead import template, you can click here and it will download it to your desktop. Then you take all your customers and put them in there, and then you can import all those leads instantly. Or let's say you worked for, that's okay. Or let's say that you were an OnGuard customer and you exported all of your customers and you just switched to the one-stop portal. You'll click OnGuard instead of leads, and then you will choose the file on your laptop or desktop. You'll be able to import all of your customers right into the one-stop portal, and it'll also match it against the employees that we have in our system, so long as those names match the ones on the OnGuard sheet. And so that way you're able to still track everything. That's how we do importing in the one-stop portal.
Tracking CSIDs is one of the more robust functions of One-Stop Portal. You'll come over to the Setup menu, you'll go to the CSID tab, and then you have two sub-tabs, CSID Setup and CSID Values. It initially brings you to CSID Setup. So here's an example of a profile that I've created for in-house UCC alarm.com accounts. That's the description I gave it. I told it that I'm using UCC as the central station. This is for in-house accounts only. Here are all the monitoring types it can work for. Here are all the customer types it can work for, panel types that I can use, and here are the different states I can use. We don't know exactly how you want to keep your CSIDs, and so we give you all those variables so you can track them however you want to. After you've set up a CSID setup profile, you go over here to CSID values. Now from here, you can see the actual profile that you created, and then you can see when it was allocated. Now if this is an AlarmNet block of CSIDs, then you can tell it, okay, here's my city code and here's my CSID for AlarmNet. Or if it's any other type of account, you give it the receiver phone number. If there's a backup receiver phone number, you can put that here as well. Then you'll add in the CSIDs. You'll do this by clicking Add New. Now you can click Select to go in and change anything, but when you click Add New, all you do is you tell it, you say, here's the receiver number or AlarmNet city code and CSID, here's the prefix, and then you put in the range of the suffixes. So if my CSIDs are AA0001 through AA0010, then I would put in prefix AA, suffix is starting with 0001, ends with 0010, and then it will automatically add in all 10 of them. Or you can add in a whole bunch more. I know guys that put in 500 at a time. And then once you have those in here, you click the finish on the wizard, and now you have all those added in. Now when you go to the customer section, when you're ready to assign a CSID, you'll click the button that says Assign CSID, and there you go, you're done. So this tracks it for you and makes it so you can assign it on the fly very easily. We try to do everything we can to make your life better at One Stop Portal.